Part 1, The Burden of Life. Rain pattered on the tin roof of their small suburban Chicago home. Frank Carter, 43, looked out the window, watching the drops slide down the cracked glass. He was used to the sound. The rain was his daughter's music to sleep on the roughest nights. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Lucy, an 8-year-old with curly brown hair and big eyes, tugged at his sleeve. Frank sighed, a tired smile on his gaunt face. "I know, honey. I'll have dinner ready." He walked into the small kitchen and opened the nearly empty refrigerator. There was a half-empty carton of milk, a few eggs, and some shredded cheese. Frank grabbed an old pan, beat an egg, and made scrambled eggs and cheese, his third dinner in a row this week. It had been 3 years since Sarah, his wife and Lucy's mother, had died of cancer. For 3 years, Frank raised his daughter alone, working 2 jobs, a plumber by day and a security guard at an office building by night. The money he earned was just enough to pay for rent, medicine for Lucy's asthma, and simple meals. "Dad, tell me about Mom," Lucy said as they sat at the old wooden table eating dinner. "My mom?" Frank smiled, his eyes softening. She was the most wonderful woman in the world. She had a smile that lit up the room and a laugh that rang like wind chimes. She loved flowers, especially daisies. And she made the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. Lucy smiled, pleased with the familiar story. Frank always told the same things, but she never got tired of hearing about her mother. After dinner, Frank cleared the dishes while Lucy did her homework. He looked at his watch, 7 p.m., an hour until his security guard shift. "Lucy, remember Maria will be here to watch you. Daddy has to go to work." Maria was a 17-year-old neighbor who sometimes looked after Lucy when Frank worked the night shift. But then his phone rang. Maria called, her voice full of regret. "Uncle Frank, I'm sorry, but I can't watch Lucy tonight. My grandmother just got admitted to the hospital, and we're on our way there." "It's okay, Maria. I hope your grandmother gets better soon." Frank hung up, feeling heavy with worry. He couldn't miss his shift. He had been behind on rent for 2 months, and the landlord had given him his final warning. "Lucy," he called to his daughter. "Do you want to come with me to work?" Her eyes lit up. "Yes. Can I bring my books and toys?" "Of course, honey." An hour later, Frank sat in the small security room on the ground floor of the office building, Lucy curled up in the chair next to him, asleep with a picture book in her hands. It was still raining. Frank checked the security camera screen, looked at the clock, 11:30 p.m. He made his usual rounds of the floors, making sure all the doors were locked, then returned to the security room. As he passed the main entrance, Frank noticed a figure standing in the rain. He carefully opened the glass door. "Hello? Can I help you?" A young woman, in her early 30s, stood shivering in the rain. Her long, dark hair was wet and stuck to her cheeks, her clothes soaked with water. Her big brown eyes were desperate. I am sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "My car broke down a few blocks away. My phone's dead, and there aren't any cabs in the area at this hour. I just needed a dry place to stand for a while. I didn't want to be a bother." Frank looked at the woman. She didn't look like the homeless or drug addicts he sometimes had to chase from his building. She was wearing a business suit that, though soaked, was clearly designer. "Come in," Frank said, opening the door wider. "You can wait in the lobby until it stops where you can get in touch with someone." "Thank you very much." The woman entered, rain dripping from her clothes onto the marble floor. "My name is Rebecca. Rebecca Mitchell." "Frank Carter," he held out his hand. "I'm the security guard here." Rebecca squeezed the water from her hair, trying to dry herself. "I'm really sorry to bother you. I was on my way back from a late meeting in." She stopped when she saw Lucy sleeping in a chair in the security room. "Is that your daughter?" Frank nodded. "Yes, Lucy. Her babysitter was suddenly unavailable today." "She's a sweet girl," Rebecca smiled. But Frank noticed a flash of sadness in her eyes. "Would you like some coffee? To warm up?" Frank offered. Yes, I'd appreciate it. Frank brewed 2 cups from the old machine in the security room. Rebecca sat down in a nearby chair, still shivering slightly from the wetness. May I ask how long you've been working here? Rebecca asked, taking a sip of her coffee. Almost 3 years. This is my second job. I work as a plumber during the day. Rebecca nodded, admiringly. 2 jobs and a small child. It must be hard. We take it one day at a time, Frank replied, not wanting to delve into his own situation. Where's her mother? Rebecca asked, then immediately regretted it. Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. It's okay. My wife died of cancer 3 years ago. I'm sorry, Rebecca said softly. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Rebecca told Frank about her job. She was the CEO of an interior design firm. She was on her way back from a meeting with a potential client when her car broke down. Time passed, and the rain continued. It was almost 1 a.m. It's still pouring, Frank said, looking out the window. Do you have anyone you can call? Rebecca shook her head. I just moved to Chicago 2 months ago. I don't know many people. Frank considered the situation. He couldn't leave the woman standing in the lobby all night, but he couldn't leave her post either. Listen, he said. There's a couch in the guard room. It's not very comfortable, but at least it's dry. You can rest there until morning. I have a spare coat in the closet you can use as a blanket. Rebecca was surprised by the stranger's kindness. You don't have to do that. It's storming outside, and it's late. It's not safe for a woman to be walking around alone at this hour. Rebecca considered the offer. If you don't mind. I'm really tired. Frank took an old coat from the closet and handed it to Rebecca. It's not new, but it's clean. Thank you very much, Frank. I don't know what else to say. Frank just smiled, then continued his patrol, leaving Rebecca to rest on the couch in the guard room, next to the sleeping Lucy. Part 2, The Fateful Morning. Dawn filtered through the security room window. Frank had been up all night, but he was used to it after years of working double shifts. Rebecca was curled up on the couch, Frank's jacket draped over her, fast asleep. Lucy was still sleeping soundly in the chair next to her. Frank gently woke his daughter. Lucy, wake up. It's almost time for school. She rubbed her eyes, then looked curiously at the strange woman in the room. Daddy, who is this? She whispered. It's Rebecca. Her car broke down in the rain last night. Rebecca woke up now, too. She sat up, her hair a mess, but her smile was still bright. Good morning. Hello, Lucy said, curious. I'm Lucy. It was nice to meet you, Lucy, Rebecca smiled at her. Thanks for letting me stay last night. Frank handed Rebecca a cup of freshly brewed coffee. Are you feeling better? Yes, thank you very much. I don't know what I would do without your help. Frank shook his head. Nothing. Anyone would do it. No, not anyone, Rebecca said, her voice serious. You don't know who I am, and yet you trust me and help me. My dad is the best in the world, Lucy said proudly. Rebecca smiled at her. Yes, you're very lucky to have a dad like that. Frank looked at his watch, 6:30 a.m. His shift was almost over, and he had to get Lucy to school before he started his job as a plumber. Do you need help calling an ambulance? Frank asked. No, thank you. My phone is slightly charged from the power bank in my bag. Rebecca pulled out her phone. If you don't mind, I have an important call to make. Of course. I'll take Lucy to the car. When you're ready, just get out, I'll lock the door. Frank and Lucy left the security room, leaving Rebecca alone. Once in the car, Frank saw Rebecca standing by the security room window, the phone pressed to her ear, her face serious as she spoke. About 10 minutes later, Rebecca walked out of the building. Frank rolled down the window. Is everything okay? He asked. Yes, Rebecca nodded, her expression unreadable. The tow truck will be here in an hour. I'll wait at the coffee shop nearby. That's great. Good luck. Rebecca moved closer to the car window. Frank, I want to thank you again. Can you give me your phone number? I want to repay you in some way. Frank felt embarrassed. No need, really. Please, Rebecca insisted. Just a thank you coffee. Reluctantly, Frank read his phone number. Rebecca wrote it down and smiled. Bye, Lucy. Nice to meet you. Bye, Rebecca. Lucy waved through the window as the car rolled away. For the rest of the day, Frank didn't think much about last night's encounter. He was busy with plumbing jobs at 3 different locations, picking Lucy up from school, making simple dinners, and helping her with her homework. He didn't expect Rebecca to call back. People like her and people like him belonged to different worlds. As Frank was washing the dishes after dinner, however, his phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Hello? Frank answered, his hands still wet with soap. Frank? It's Rebecca. Rebecca Mitchell, who was on your couch last night. Oh, hello, Frank said, surprised. Did you get home safely? Yes, thank you. Frank, I'm calling because, well, I don't know where to begin, but I have a proposition to discuss with you. It involves Lucy. Frank felt nervous. Lucy? What's wrong? No, nothing bad, Rebecca quickly reassured. Actually, it might be good news. But I don't want to talk about it over the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow? Maybe for lunch? I'll explain everything. Frank hesitated. He wasn't used to meeting strangers, especially rich and glamorous women like Rebecca. But something in her tone intrigued him. Okay. I can make a lunch break at 12:30. Great. There's a little restaurant on Oak Street called Cafe Louisa. I'll make a reservation. After hanging up, Frank sat down, feeling confused. What could it be about Lucy that Rebecca wanted to discuss? He couldn't imagine. Part 3, The Unexpected Request. Cafe Louisa turned out to be a fancy restaurant in an upscale part of Chicago. Frank, in his shabby work clothes, felt completely out of place as he walked in. Rebecca was already waiting at a corner table, looking very professional in a dark blue business suit. Frank. Nice to see you again, she stood up and shook his hand. Sorry about the look, Frank said, looking down at his work clothes. I came straight from the construction site. Don't worry, Rebecca smiled. Thank you for taking the time to come. They sat down, and a waiter brought over the menu. Frank looked at the prices and swallowed. A lunch here cost him an entire day's wages. Whatever you want, Rebecca said, as if reading his mind. I'll treat you. After ordering, Rebecca took a sip of her drink, her expression suddenly serious. Frank, I don't know where to start, so I'll just say it. My company is looking for a technical manager for construction and interior design projects. It's a position that requires someone with experience in plumbing, electrical, and general housing. I'd like to offer you the position. Frank was taken aback. Me? But I'm just a plumber. I don't have a college degree or any special certifications. You have hands-on experience, which is what we need. The position will involve supervising contractors, making sure the work is done properly, and advising on technical issues. The starting salary is $75,000 a year, plus full health insurance for you and Lucy. Frank almost choked. That was 3 times his current income from both jobs combined. I don't understand, he stammered. Why are you offering this to me? You just met me last night. Rebecca placed her hands on the table, her expression sincere. The call I made this morning was with the company's human resources director. I told him about you working 2 jobs to support your daughter, about how you helped me, a total stranger, during a stormy night. Frank, in the business world, we can teach skills, but we can't teach character. You have the character our company needs: integrity, diligence, and trustworthiness. Frank was stunned. But I don't know anything about interior design. Part 3, The Unexpected Request. Café Luisa turned out to be a fancy restaurant in an upscale part of Chicago. Frank, in his old work clothes, felt completely out of place as he walked in. Rebecca was already waiting at a corner table, looking professional in a dark blue business suit. "Frank. Nice to see you again," she said, standing up, shaking his hand. "Sorry about this," Frank said, looking down at his work clothes. "I came straight from the construction site." "Don't worry," Rebecca smiled. "Thank you for taking the time to come." They sat down, and a waiter brought the menus. Frank looked at the prices and swallowed. A lunch here cost him a day's wages. "Order anything you want," Rebecca said, as if reading his mind. "On my treat." After ordering, Rebecca took a sip of water, her expression suddenly serious. "Frank, I don't know where to start, so I'll be blunt. My company is looking for an engineering manager for construction and interior design projects. It's a position that requires someone with experience in plumbing, electrical, and general housing. I'd like to offer you the position." Frank was taken aback. "Me? But I'm just a plumber. I don't have a college degree or any special certifications. You have hands-on experience, and that's what we're looking for. The position will involve supervising contractors, making sure the work is done properly, and advising on technical issues. The starting salary is $75,000 a year, plus full health insurance for you and Lucy." Frank almost choked. That was 3 times his current income from both jobs combined. I don't understand," he stammered. "Why are you offering this to me? You just met me last night." Rebecca put her hands on the table, her expression sincere. "The call I made this morning was to the company's human resources director. I told him about you working 2 jobs to support your daughter, about how you helped me, a total stranger, during a stormy night. Frank, in the business world, we can teach skills, but we can't teach character. You have the character our company needs: integrity, diligence, and trustworthiness." Frank was stunned. "But I don't know anything about interior design." "You don't need to know. You'll work with the design team. Your role will be to make sure the technical elements are done right. And we'll train you." The meal was served, but Frank could barely lift his fork. His mind was reeling from the information he'd just received. "And that's why I mentioned Lucy," Rebecca continued. "This job has steady hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., no nights. You'll have time to spend with your daughter. And our health insurance will cover her asthma medication." Frank looked at Rebecca, stunned. "How did you know about Lucy's asthma medication?" Rebecca looked suddenly embarrassed. "I saw the inhaler in her bag when we were in the security room. And I heard you on the phone with someone about getting the medication." Frank nodded slowly, still feeling unreal. "I don't know what to say. This is an unbelievable offer." "I know it comes as a surprise," Rebecca admitted. "But I think this is a perfect match. Our company needs someone like you, and I think this position will change your and Lucy's lives." "I need some time to think," Frank said, feeling overwhelmed. "Of course. Here's my card, with all my contact information. Call me when you're ready." Rebecca handed Frank a fancy business card. On the way home, Frank couldn't stop thinking about the offer. A job with a high salary, steady hours, and health insurance for Lucy? It sounded like a dream. But Frank was also skeptical. Why would a fancy company want to hire an unqualified plumber like him? That night, after Lucy had gone to bed, Frank sat at the kitchen table, staring at Rebecca's business card. He pulled out his phone, hesitated, then dialed. Rebecca Mitchell, her voice answered after 2 rings. "Rebecca, it's Frank. I have a few questions about your offer." "Of course. Ask away." "I still don't understand why you picked me. Surely there are people more qualified than me." Rebecca was silent for a moment. "Frank, let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, my family was very poor. My dad worked 3 different jobs to support us. One rainy night, my dad's car broke down on his way to work the night shift. No one stopped to help. He had to walk 5 miles in the rain, soaked and with a bad cold. The pneumonia left him unable to work for months, and we almost lost our home. Frank listened in silence, beginning to understand something. I vowed that if I had the chance, I would help people like my dad, people who worked hard, raised families, and still had a heart for others. When you helped me last night, I saw my dad in you, Frank. And I know our company needs people like you, not just for your skills, but for your character. Frank swallowed, moved by Rebecca's story. I don't know what to say. This isn't charity, Rebecca clarified. This is a real job offer. You'll have to work hard, learn a lot, and prove yourself. But I believe you can do it. After hanging up, Frank sat silently in the dark kitchen. He thought about Lucy, about the hardships they'd been through over the past 3 years, and about the opportunity that had just presented itself. A chance to change their lives. Part 4, The New Turn. A week later, Frank stood in front of a swanky office building in downtown Chicago, wearing the only suit he owned, the old one he'd worn to his wedding years ago. Lucy had helped him tie his tie that morning, a proud smile on her face. Good luck, Dad, she'd said as he dropped her off at school. Love you, Dad. Now, Frank took a deep breath and stepped into the lobby of Mitchell Design Associates. Inside, it was all glass and stainless steel, with modern art hanging on the walls. A young secretary smiled at him. Mr. Carter? Miss Mitchell is waiting for you. Follow me, please. Frank was led down a long hallway to a large conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city of Chicago. Rebecca stood there, along with 4 others. Frank. So glad you came, she smiled, shaking his hand. Let me introduce you, this is our management team, James Peterson, Director of Operations, Sophia Wright, Director of Design, Daniel Kim, Director of Finance, and Lucas Wong, Director of Projects. Frank shook each of their hands, feeling unsure. They were all dressed in expensive suits, looking professional and confident. Frank wondered if he really belonged here. The interview went on for 2 hours. Frank was asked about his experience in the plumbing industry, his knowledge of construction, and how he handled difficult situations. He answered honestly, occasionally stumbling over technical jargon, but always demonstrating his sincerity and practical knowledge. Can you tell us how you would handle a situation where a contractor did not follow specifications? Lucas Wong asked. Frank thought for a moment. First, I'd figure out why. Maybe they're having technical difficulties, or maybe they're trying to cut costs. In either case, I'd talk to them, explain why the specifications are important, and figure out a solution. If they continue to be non-compliant, I'd escalate it to higher-ups for stronger action. James Peterson, a tall man with silver hair, nodded in agreement. Straightforward and down to earth. I like that. After the interview, Rebecca gave Frank a tour of the office. You did a great job, she said. The team was impressed with your practical knowledge. Frank felt relieved. I was worried I wasn't qualified. Don't underestimate yourself, Rebecca said. We can teach the procedures and terminology, but we can't teach the years of practical experience you have. As they passed a large design office, Frank saw architects and designers working on complex drawings and computer models. This is where the projects are designed, Rebecca explained. Your job is to make sure these designs are technically feasible, and then oversee the construction. I still can't believe it, Frank confessed. It's like a dream. Rebecca smiled. Do you remember the phone call I made the morning after I met you? I called the president of the company, told him about you. And you know, the president of the company, Jeffrey Mitchell, is my brother. He lost his father when he was young, just like Lucy. He knows the value of a good father. Frank blinked, surprised. I don't know. My brother built this company on the principle of giving everyone a chance, regardless of background. Many of our employees are in your shoes, people with talent and a work ethic, but who haven't had the right opportunities. When they returned to Rebecca's office, she handed Frank a file. Here's your employment contract, including all the details of salary, benefits, and job responsibilities. Take it home, read it carefully, and let me know if you accept. Frank took the file, his hands shaking slightly. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me, Rebecca said. This is an opportunity you deserve. And I know you'll do a great job. That night, after Lucy had gone to bed, Frank sat at the kitchen table, reading the contract page by page. The salary was even higher than Rebecca had mentioned, $80,000 a year, plus performance bonuses. The benefits package included comprehensive health insurance, a 401k with matching contributions, and 3 weeks of paid vacation. Frank looked up at the picture of Sarah on the wall again, his wife beaming on their wedding day. You won't believe this, Sarah, he whispered. Things are about to change. The next morning, Frank called Rebecca and accepted the job. He informed his current employers that he would be leaving in 2 weeks. He was nervous about telling Lucy, she was used to her current schedule, and he didn't know how she would react to this big change. Lucy, I have something to tell you, Frank sat down next to his daughter that evening. I'm starting a new job. A new job? Lucy looked up from her workbook. You're not going to be a plumber anymore? No, not at all. I'm going to work for a design firm, helping them with construction projects. It's a much better job, with better hours, and Frank hesitated. I'll make more money, honey. Enough so we can move into a bigger apartment, and you can have your asthma medication without worrying about the cost. Lucy tilted her head, considering this information. So you won't have to work nights anymore? That's right. You'll be home with me every night. Lucy's face lit up. Really? Every night? Yes, every night, Frank smiled. Lucy jumped out of her chair and hugged her father. I'm so happy, Dad. This is great. Frank hugged his daughter, feeling a surge of joy. Yes, it is. Is it because of Rebecca? Lucy asked, looking up at her father with a mischievous glint in her eye. Frank was surprised. How do you know? I heard you talking to her on the phone. And I saw how she looked at you, like the way my teacher looked at Mr. Jones. They're getting married, you know. Frank felt his cheeks heat up. No, it's not like that, Lucy. Rebecca just helped me get the job. It's a professional relationship. If you say so, Lucy shrugged, smiling mischievously. Part 5, New Chapter. 3 months later, Frank and Lucy's lives were completely different. They moved into a spacious 2-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood, near a better school for Lucy. Frank no longer had to work 24/7, and for the first time in years, he had time to take Lucy to the park on weekends, help her with her homework every night, and even start participating in her school activities. At Mitchell Design Associates, Frank was learning quickly. In the early days, he felt like an imposter, out of place among his colleagues with degrees and corporate experience. But gradually, he realized that his practical knowledge of construction and home systems was invaluable. Architects and designers began to seek his advice on the feasibility of their ideas. Contractors respected him because he understood their work from first-hand experience. One Friday afternoon, after completing a report on a luxury apartment project, Frank knocked on Rebecca's office door. Come in, she called. Frank walked in and placed a report on her desk. Here is the engineering review report for the Harrison project. I have added some recommendations for plumbing improvements that I think will save money in the long run. Rebecca looked over the report, nodding in approval. Great job, Frank. You've really grown over the past 3 months. Thank you, Frank said, feeling proud. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. Rebecca put the report down and looked at Frank. You know, James Peterson told me yesterday that you were one of the best hiring decisions we've ever made. And I absolutely agree. Frank felt warm at the compliment. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. It's changed Lucy and my life completely. How's Lucy? How's she doing at her new school? She loves it. She's joined the science club, and her grades are improving. And with the new health insurance, we can control her asthma much better. Rebecca smiled warmly. I'm glad to hear that. A comfortable silence passed between them. Over the past 3 months, Frank and Rebecca had developed a good working relationship, one of mutual respect. But Frank also found himself finding excuses to stop by her office, and occasionally catching her looking at him with an unreadable expression. "Frank," Rebecca broke the silence. "There's a charity event tomorrow night. A formal dinner for a scholarship fund for disadvantaged children. I was wondering if you'd like to come with me?" Frank was taken aback by the invitation. "As the date?" Rebecca blushed slightly. Yeah, I guess. Unless you're uncomfortable, since we're colleagues." No, Frank said quickly. I'd love to go. But I have to find someone to look after Lucy. Actually, the invitation is for both of us. It's a family event. A lot of our colleagues will be bringing their kids." Frank smiled. "Then we'd be happy to attend." The next evening, Frank wore the new suit he'd bought for himself, the first time he'd spent money on nice clothes since Sarah's death, and Lucy wore the party dress she'd picked out with the help of her teacher. Rebecca picked him up in her car. She looked stunning in her dark blue evening gown, and Frank couldn't help but notice how beautiful she looked. Lucy quickly struck up a conversation with Rebecca about her science project, and Frank sat quietly, listening to the two women in his life chat and laugh. The charity event was held at a fancy hotel. Frank felt a little uncomfortable in the crowd of wealthy businessmen and celebrities, but Rebecca kept him company, introducing him to everyone, and Lucy quickly made friends with some of the other kids. "Frank, I'd like to introduce you to my brother," Rebecca said, leading him to a middle-aged man with silver hair and a warm smile. "Jeffrey, this is Frank Carter, the man I told you about." Jeffrey Mitchell shook Frank's hand firmly. "It's nice to meet you, Frank. I've heard so many good things about you from Rebecca and James. You're doing a great job for our company." "Thank you," Frank said. "I'm grateful for the opportunity." "No, we should be grateful," Jeffrey said sincerely. "Our company was built on the principle of giving opportunity to those who deserve it. My dad and Rebecca started from nothing, just like you. And look how far we've come." As the evening progressed, Frank danced a slow waltz with Rebecca, feeling a little awkward but happy. Lucy danced with Jeffrey, giggling as he spun her around the dance floor. "Oh my gosh, you were right about Lucy," Rebecca whispered as they danced. "She looks just like Sarah." Frank was surprised. "I never told you about Sarah." Rebecca chuckled. "I saw her picture in the security room that night. And in your old apartment." Lucy had her mother's eyes and her smile. Frank felt a warm feeling spread through him. "Sarah would have loved you," he said softly. Rebecca looked into his eyes. "I would have loved to have met her." The evening ended late for Lucy, who had fallen asleep in the back seat of the car by the time Rebecca drove them home. Frank carried her up the stairs to their apartment, tucked her into bed, and tucked her in carefully. "She's a wonderful child," Rebecca said softly, standing in the bedroom doorway. "Yes, she is," Frank smiled at his sleeping daughter. They went into the living room, and Frank offered to make tea. While they waited for the water to boil, they stood by the window, looking out at the bright lights of Chicago. "It's been 3 months since that rainy night," Rebecca said. "Sometimes I still can't believe it all started on an old bench in the security room." Frank turned to look at her, his heart pounding. "Rebecca, I can't thank you enough. You changed our lives. Everything, the job, the new house, Lucy's school, health insurance. I never dreamed life could be this good." "Frank," Rebecca said softly, placing her hand on his. "I didn't do it out of pity or charity. I did it because I saw a good man, a hard-working man, who loved his daughter, and deserved to be happy. And I have to admit, I saw a man I wanted to know better." Frank looked into Rebecca's eyes, and for the first time in the 3 years since Sarah's death, he felt his heart open. He leaned forward slowly and kissed her, a soft, hopeful kiss. When they parted, Rebecca smiled brightly. "I've been waiting for this since that first night on your couch." Frank took Rebecca's hand. "I don't know what's going to happen next, but I want to find out. With you. And I know Lucy does too. I want to, too, Rebecca whispered. From the next room, Lucy opened her eyes slightly, saw her father and Rebecca standing by the window, hand in hand. She smiled and closed her eyes, drifting off to sleep with a peace she hadn't felt since her mother died. Outside, the rain began to fall again, tapping gently against the windows. But this time, instead of bringing cold and despair, it brought the promise of a new beginning, a beginning that all began with a rainy night, when a poor father let a strange woman sleep on his couch, and a phone call changed their lives forever.